So this week's episode, we welcome a lady by the name of Virginie Ferguson. Virginie hails from France but has lived here in Western Bartonshire for around 15 years with her husband and our young kids. Virginie's a yoga teacher, so Mark and I went along to talk to her a bit about yoga and the benefits of yoga. But what actually transpired was far more interesting. The conversation took an unexpected turn. It was quite inspiring. I'm sure that many people out there will relate to the journey that Virginie's been on. Obviously, you come from France, and you're here in Scotland.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to hear about your journey to coming here.
Yeah. So I lived in France. I was born and raised in France, and I left France on my 21st. Well, just a day after my 21st birthday, actually. And then I went to Guernsey. It was really just to improve my English and try to do something that would just put me in a better position to get a job. I actually started training as a midwife. I'd done that for a year and I realised that I hated the hospital environment. So I left that, done a few jobs during there, trying to find my way and my place, what I was going to do next. And I was working in Paris for about 6 months in marketing. Hated it as well. It wasn't good. It wasn't for me either. So anyway, I went to Guernsey, lovely island in the middle of the channel. And I started working in an hotel there. Met my husband, who's Scottish, who's from here. And after 4.5 years, we moved here to Scotland, and that was 15 years ago. After that, kind of rekindled my love with science, and then I started working for a company.
As we obviously took up Virginie's offer of a free lunch, she told us about working in this scientific job where she was connected to the pharmaceutical industry, starting out as a sales rep and then climbing the ranks. She attained a respected, high salary role and was really progressing in her career, but there was no passion or excitement in the job. And it was only after taking up yoga that Virginie realised how unfulfilling her job really was, and that's when her heart began to shout louder than her mind.
As I say, most yoga teachers generally have been practicing yoga for many years, or started yoga and practicing it in their 20s. I didn't step on the mat till I was 33. It was after my second child was born, my daughter was born, and I went back to work full time right in the midst of the Ebola outbreak crisis, which my customer was working on. Full time in there with 2 kids, a 6-month-old baby in tow, and I was just basically really stressed out on that. So I had started to try to get back into fitness, just to help my mental state, just to help my body, kind of going back to what it was doing before for me. I got a really bad cold and I couldn't shake it for weeks, and I was coughing and spluttering and stuff, so I couldn't do any cardio or anything like that. Going to the gym, I was just exhausted. And at the time I think it was the Nike Fit app or something on my phone, and there was some yoga classes in there, and I thought, well, I'll just try that. Never tried it. I've always been sceptical of it, but I thought, well, I'll just give it a go. I can just do that in my house, and it's quiet and doesn't require any breathing, so I'm not going to cough all over the place. And so I done the first session and sort of felt my body working. I mean, the next day I did really feel my muscles, but it was more like, well, I was surprised, it was just more the way I felt after, so that connection with my body. I never connected to my body that way. I think when I was doing fitness before, you're really pushing your body to its limit, or you're really asking a lot of your muscles and your body as just that in the physical sense. But yoga was different, where I was having to be made aware of my body, but also the feelings and the emotions that were attached to that. And when you're doing a fitness class or working in the gym, you're not really that aware of your breathing, or you're breathing so you can get oxygen, but you're not controlling that breathing. Or so it was that. So I started to discover a side that I never expected from yoga at all. And eventually I got more into the meditation side of things as well. I was much clearer and focused at work. I was getting to work and I knew what I was doing and I knew what I had to do. And I was so much more focused and clear-headed into. I was a lot calmer as well. I just became a better person to be around for my family. Generally I am quite a level-headed person anyway, as naturally, but stress gets to you. Like you snap at people regardless. If there's too much on your plate, like everybody's got that threshold. So, but that threshold started to lower and lower and lower as I was practicing more and more yoga. So, and then from there, I started to want to know more about why I was doing that, because, as I said, I've got scientific background and I just love reading about stuff. I'm a real geek anyway. I love to understand how things work and what happens in your body, and I love to understand how things work. So I started to go to yoga retreats and yoga workshops to add to my knowledge, and to make sure also that what I was practicing at home was correct, to have a little bit of guidance from other teachers. And eventually I just kept thinking, when I was in my job, in front of my computer, all I was thinking about was yoga, when I was going to go back on my mat, when I was going to be able to do this. And we talk about manifestation and kind of almost living your truth or your future before it happens, kind of feel it in the present moment. And when I was stepping into my mat, there was some mornings where I was actually imagining myself teaching and saying those things that I was doing as if I was teaching them to someone. But then there's that voice in your head all the time that says, don't be sorry, you've got a great job, it's a great pay, you're enjoying what you're doing, you've got great colleagues, you're travelling all over Europe, you've seen beautiful places. Why would you want to be a yoga teacher in the one place, earning probably like 3 times less what you're earning now? So that voice was there all the time, the voice of reason. But deep in there in my heart, that's what I was thinking about. It's just I wanted to teach yoga. So also, as I was practicing at home, my daughter was growing up. She was starting to show an interest, but obviously kids' attention span are just very, very short. So I was trying to think of ways I could keep her engaged and encourage her to grow up with that practice as well, because there's so many things, so many tools that you can use. Now, lifelong tools that are going to help you throughout your life. So I started looking into it because I shown that to be a kids yoga teacher, you had to be a qualified adult yoga teacher. Turns out you don't. So that was my first step into teaching. I done a training in Glasgow, certified as a kids yoga teacher. And then people were starting to say to me, when are you going to do adult yoga? Why do you not do adult yoga? And then again, there's this voice in the head, no, I'm just doing this for fun, and just because I love teaching kids, and I'm not going to do that. And it's not happening. But then the voice, that voice, kept getting louder and louder and louder. And eventually I started looking into it. And then I signed up for yoga teacher training. And then I qualified. And then 3 months, as I was qualifying, doing my training, I thought, this is what I need to do. I can't go on. I wasn't enjoying my work anymore, and I was pulled to do this, so I just gave my notice. I had 3 months, and that was it. That was July last year, and yeah.
Wow.
that was it, and then started the classes, and we built this obviously. Oh yeah, a year ago.
I don't just believe this, I know for a fact that there are many people out there who, this year in particular, is giving them time to step back from the busy jobs, the overdoing, the stress, the anxiety. They've had more family time, they've maybe started to think about ideas that they've been working on, themselves included, but having that courage to step into your truth that you talked about, I find that really interesting. I think people out there would be interested to hear about what it took to go from stepping onto a yoga mat to following your heart and to pursuing that.
You've kind of stolen my question. Yeah, I'm really interested to hear this as well. Following your passion and you're listening to your soul rather than what's going on in there.
Yeah. In the West, we tend to kind of define ourselves like by 3 entities, so your body, your mind and your soul, and we keep them quite separate, although I know a lot of people now are way more aware that the body and the mind, it's all linked, you can't separate the two, but we're still kind of putting them into 3 boxes. Whereas the yogic philosophy sees us as beings having a human experience, and that human experience is kind of defined, a physical body, you've got your energetic body, so what I was talking about, which is all the things that are going on as you breathe, all your physiological things that are going on in your body, it's all energy moving. You've got your emotional body, your intellectual body, and the last one is what they call the bliss body, which is basically your soul, so your true self, your true nature. Once you've taken all that away, is that pure consciousness, that awareness that you have in there. So all of that is and so intertwined, it's not separate because everything is interconnected. So that's the way yoga see human beings basically. And so the goal of yoga is just to keep that wholeness, is to keep, when you feel whole and you don't feel separate, this is where you feel happy and at peace really. Once you've kind of reconciled all those layers and you get down to your bliss body, this is where you just, there's nothing that can touch you. It's just, you know that pure awareness is there and nothing can affect it. Going back to that is knowing that you can't ignore that truth that's there. If deep inside you feel something's pulling you, is calling you, is telling you this is what you want to do, Virginie, then you can't ignore that, because then you separate again those bodies, your mind from your soul, and then you're going to be unhappy. If you want to be truly happy, you can't ignore that voice, that doesn't speak with words.
So you're saying it's called the bliss body?
Yeah.
The bliss body. So do you think then when you were in this big high-flying scientific job, you'd like 3 times the salary, people would think that's the life, I get the money, I get the great job. Do you think then that you were out of touch with your bliss body then, you just weren't connected to that in that job?
Yeah.
How do people get in touch with it? How do they figure out what their bliss is?
And there are people who know that they say, I love doing it, I would love to be able to do that. And they don't take it any further. They just say these things, they're aware of it, but there's something that's, again, that wee voice out there that says, don't be sad, you can make a career out of this. So, because we're so culturally conditioned to follow the one path, you should be doing this, you need to go to university because you need to have good grades at school to get to university, because you can get good jobs that pay well, so you can buy your house, so you can get married and you can have children. But that path is not for everyone. And And that's not really what human beings were made to do. I mean, we just all have a different soul. We all have a role to play on this earth, and it's that voice up there that is far too loud for many people, and a lot of people are pressured into that through their families, through their environment, and it's totally understandable, their culture. So yeah, I think it's maybe hard for some people. Maybe some people know that and they know that they would love to do this, but there's so many barriers that they're just even giving up before.
I think the whole purpose of what we're trying to do, I think the three of us in our own different ways, is to, I suppose, to help people unlock the deeper self, if you can call it that. That's kind of how I tend to define it. But to be more heart-led, I think the problem often as well that we end up unhappy in our jobs because, quite frankly, these are organisations and places that are led by that, and they're not meant to be. They're supposed to be led by the heart. What I think is really interesting, what I think is happening now, is that there are now movements and companies and people who do want to be living their life from the heart, like who do want to lead people from the heart, who do want to do their job from the heart, and the callousness that comes with, you know, being identified completely with the mind. I think people are beginning to see through that now. I think this year in particular has really opened people's eyes as to what's truly important. You know, I've had conversations with friends who might not necessarily say they're on this path, a path of awakening or even a path to sort of wellness or self-growth, but the things that they've confided in me about the connections they've made with their kids, the connections they've remade with their partners, the connections they've made with themselves. And it has been through things like they've maybe started doing a little bit of yoga, they've decided to do a little bit of involved breath work, they've decided to go and take a dip in the loch. Like, and all of a sudden these people who, you know, were traditionally like us maybe in the past, you know, we're all about our jobs, we're all about what the mind was telling us, all of a sudden they're finding themselves. And that's fucking amazing. I think it takes so much courage, like there will be people out there who listen to your story and be inspired to think about the stuff that's been in their heart that whole time.
Because it's a brave thing you did. I mean, you were in a high-flying job and you've had to give up that and the money and that takes courage to leave that behind and then follow what's in there. So if you've got any advice for someone who's watching this and they're thinking, right, I'm here, but I kind of want to be there, what kind of advice would you give them to make the break?
You'll never feel comfortable to make that leap. It's big and it's the unknown, and that's the thing as well, where when we say culturally, you need to see this is what you need to do, this is the next step, you need to be there, and when you're retired and you've got your grandchildren and you're in a good position and you're a good house and you've got money. But I think as human beings we always try to see where the end is. We always try to plan for that, and we want to see the steps in between, but we need to forget that. We need to trust the universe to give you what you will need. And there's things you can't plan. The best thing comes out of nowhere and you think, oh, like you guys meeting you and having that conversation, you know, like I'd never imagined that would happen. I never knew you existed. So it's trusting the process, trusting that you are supported, and you can't see the next step, you can't see what's really going to happen, but maybe put steps in place that are going to make you feel a little bit more comfortable about doing the leap, you know, maybe start a new savings account, I don't know, and have the conversation with your family and the people who are around you, so you've got their full support. You know,
like what you said though, that you don't have to know all the steps, you don't need the exact route. People just need to have a bit of faith that the universe will help them.
There's so much power when you don't know, or not necessarily when you don't know, but when you become comfortable with not knowing, because being in a place of not knowing is a non-conceptual place, because you cannot conceptualise what's going to happen next, and that is when you begin to touch the deeper self. I felt like the power of being able to just stay in a place of complete acceptance of what is going on without desperately trying to clutch on to what I think could happen or might happen. And that's when the things do begin to manifest themselves, and you do begin to connect with something deeper, the real source of intelligence in the universe, not the mind, but the source of the mind. And getting into all that stuff just really opens it up, and that's when all the synchronicities happen and people come into your life. And
if someone there said to me, do you know what, in 7 years time you'll be a yoga teacher, you'll be teaching in your garden space here, I would have just laughed, like, no way. So yeah, I think, like you say, you need to trust the process, and there's a really good book actually, I'm going to mention that, and that could be a first step for people as well. And I read that book as a 20-year-old when I was travelling in that train every day to Paris. And it was called The Alchemist from Paulo Coelho. And that book changed my life. So it's so really kind of finding your soul, but it's told as a story where he's looking for a treasure that he's heard about, and you follow him on his journey. And I don't want to spoil the end. No, I'm not going to say what I was going to say there. I don't want to spoil it for people.